Good morning, everyone. Britt Simon here. Hope you're well this wonderful Saturday morning. It's the beginning of a long weekend here in the USA. We have Monday as a day off for most people. So I'm getting out of here to go camping and taking the RV out and the Jeep and going to get out in the countryside. We have got in California some of the best camping available. And absolutely beautiful countryside. And so I've got an RV, and we can tow my Jeep. I've got a very nice off-road Jeep, and so we can get out into the countryside and experience the absolute best of American countryside, which is available to us here within 2 or 3 hours drive of my house, which is nothing. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing this weekend. I hope you're going to have a fun weekend yourselves. Couple of updates for you. Let's just show you a couple of things. I'll do a couple of quick updates. I'm not going to be on very long. I'm not going to be an hour and a half or anything like that. But so I've got a couple of updates to give you, and I'll take some questions, and we'll see how we go. Okay, so this is the data that was published last night from Zarthisius. You can see that 40,000, just over 40,000 people plus these about 40,370 people have been issued, right? That means that there are theoretically, just if we ignore adjustment of status for a minute, there are about 11,500 visas left available, right? And there are some people who keep sort of saying that some people, whoever some people are, some people are saying that visas will run out by the end of the year. Well, that's true for Egypt, but for anyone else, it's not true, right? And why not? Well, we've got 40,000 and 40,300 visas issued so far, right? In this column here. There's 15,000 people at ready status, but if you've been paying any attention to what I've been saying, I keep explaining that a lot of the people that we see in the ready status are actually no-shows from previous months. And that has never been more clear than it is right now, right? And I'll tell you why. Well, it's the end of August, right? September is about to start. And so are there 15,000 people scheduled for the month of September for interview? No, there never were. There were about 8,000 people scheduled for interview in August, right? Just over 8,000 people. So out of this 15,000 people here, at least 7,000 are now no-shows from previous months, including August, right? So there's only 8,000 and something people scheduled for interview in September. The rate of denial at the moment is very high. The refused rate is very high. It's grown recently because of the travel ban, and the rate of no-shows is also probably increased, although it's harder to see, but it's increased. So of the 8,000 people scheduled for interview in September, probably only 5,000 of those, maybe even less than that, will get their visas issued. Probably less than that, actually. And so we got, let's say, 5,000 on the 40,000 number, takes us to about 40,000, 45,000 something. And then out of the people who are in 221G, a lot of those are affected by the travel ban also. A lot of those are Iranian applicants and others affected by the travel ban. And so I only expect to see about 1,000 from there to get their, from this column, 221G, to get their visas issued. So we're probably gonna struggle to get to 48,000. We're probably not going to see 48,000 issued. We'll probably see 47,000, about that, maybe a little bit more than that. And I mean, it should be very, very obvious for anybody now. It's been obvious to me for some time, and I've been explaining this for some time. But it is clear to me that the government will be wasting about 3,000 or 4,000 visas. Well, 4,000 or 5,000 visas actually. Just wasting them. So yeah, that's the way it is. Now, a couple of other updates for you on the UK lawsuit. If you look at London Embassy, you'll see that there were 13 on 8/21, August 21. There was 13 appointments made, and 2 further on the 28th. Those are all UK lawsuit winners. We've verified that against the numbers that we know to be the UK lawsuit winners. There are 3 cases doing adjustment of status, as well as these 15 cases here. And there's one other case that has been scheduled in Abu Dhabi. It's a UK lawsuit beneficiary, and they have been scheduled in Abu Dhabi. That one is particularly clear of the impact of a lawsuit. For anybody wondering, sometimes this is another question I get: are lawsuits worthwhile? Well, yeah. They're very worthwhile. There's a lot of people waiting for interview in Abu Dhabi, and they've been waiting a month or 2 months or whatever. But because this case from the UK had been mistreated and was a beneficiary of the lawsuit, they got scheduled in Abu Dhabi, basically going ahead of that whole queue. Now, you can probably say, well, that seems unfair, but don't forget, these people had been delayed massively. These particular people have a 7,000 case number. So they would have been processed if the government had handled them properly. They would have been processed. They would have been issued months and months ago. You know, you take that as you will. But the point is that the lawsuit has caused the government to behave in a certain way. And I have to say, I'm immensely grateful and thankful that the government have behaved so well. They've processed people's DS-260s that were submitted as a result of the lawsuit within a couple of days. They scheduled people, you know, immediately, like within 2 or 3 days of people submitting their DS-260, they were scheduled at either the London Embassy or that one case in Abu Dhabi. Tremendous stuff. And then Curtis is also helping us go after the adjustment of status cases to try and accelerate those 3 that I know of as well. And has it been worth it? Has the UK lawsuit worth it for me? Well, obviously I've got money in this, right? I've got personal investment in terms of money and time and effort and everything else. But has it been worth it? Yeah, because when I speak to some of those people, some of the stories, I don't want to betray their private stories, but I've spoken to a number of these winners out of the approximately 19 winners that are going ahead. I think I've spoken to maybe 12 or 13 of them. And in there, we've got medical doctor, we've got engineers, we've got business owners, you know, that are already in America, you know, running businesses, etc. We've got students who will become engineers and will go on to do great things. We've got a couple of rocket scientists, for goodness sake, literal rocket scientists. So, you know, am I happy that I've spent my money on this lawsuit? You're damn right I am. And I was discussing it with my wife only this morning, just pointing out to her that this is like ripples on a pond. Sometimes you throw stone into a pond, and the ripples go on, and you don't know what sort of good effects that will have, and what, you know, what amazing things those people will go on to do. So all of those people that are going to have an opportunity now that would otherwise have been denied to them. You know, are going to go on and do amazing, important, wonderful things and have wonderful lives. I mean, can you imagine a medical doctor in the UK earns maybe £200,000 a year or something? In the USA, that same medical doctor can earn $500,000 to $1 million easily. You know, I mean, just life-changing situations. So, you know, so yeah, I'm very proud, very happy. I'm not stopping yet though, because we've got to get DV 2026 UK winners through. That will happen. People have asked me, do I think, you know, will I win on that? Of course I will win. That's not even a question for me in my mind. There's absolutely no doubt. Thank you. There's no doubt in my mind that the DV 26 cases will also be handled or will be fixed. They won't get this special treatment that's going on for DV25, because they don't need it. They're going to have a lot more time. So, but they are going to get a very accelerated, sort of an accelerated experience compared to regular, because their experience is going to start in probably, I don't know, September, October, November or something. That's when they're going to find out their winners. That's probably, what's going to happen. There's that one case in Abu Dhabi I mentioned on 8/22 that was scheduled. So yeah, you can have a look at the data yourself. Please do. This is an amazing resource we have through Zarthisius's site. So please go ahead and use that. So anyway, that's the two updates that I had for you. Let's take some of these questions. I just scrolling down, see there's a number of people asking questions. Let's answer some of the questions. Any updates about the number of selectees for DV26, or they will not be published this year? It's a good question. A couple of people I know, including a couple of people that that are pretty knowledgeable about this, have suggested that maybe the government won't even publish the numbers of selectees this year. That they'll do things differently. I don't think that's really. I personally think they will publish them. I think they'll publish them in the next visa bulletin. This is the first time in over 20 years of publishing the visa bulletin with the selectee numbers that they've been as late as this. The reason for it, I'm pretty sure, is the lawsuit, the UK lawsuit. I think that stopped them publishing those numbers. So I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see them publish those numbers in October, possibly with a statement that the numbers are not finalized or something, or maybe they already in the background fix the problem and reveal the number of winners in the UK. The other thing that will be impacted from that is the Cuban DV 2026 selectees. There are some, and there shouldn't be any. And so that will also be an interesting thing to watch in the numbers when we get them. Okay, Cuba was ineligible for DV26, but because the government screwed up the same thing that they screwed up for the UK, that meant that there were DV26 Cuban winners selected, and there shouldn't have been any. Government are really messing things up. So, hey, I have my interview on the 4th of September. I'm so excited. I've been watching all your videos. Awesome. That's awesome. Good luck with that. Any news on the proposed passport rule? No, the period of public consultation runs out in mid-September, a couple of weeks' time, I think it is. They might just say, well, rules be damned, we're just going to implement it into DV 2027. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to do that. Personally, I don't think they're going to try and do that. They might try and do that. The reason that I don't think they would do that is that at the end of a public consultation period, they are supposed to review all their comments and then make their decision, right, as to whether they want to implement this rule or not, and then give a 30-day notice period in the rules. And they don't have time to do all of that and then start the process in October. So do they delay the October start date so that they can implement this rule? Do they implement the rule and not follow their own procedures, which leaves them open to another lawsuit? Or do they just say, hey, we missed the boat for this year, we'll implement it for DV28? I tend to lean towards the third option, but we'll have to see. Okay. Can we use bank statements instead of the sponsor's I-134? And what's the amount necessary for one person? Yes, you can. You can show this whole thing. The question about the I-134 is about the risk that you become a public charge. That's the terminology used in the immigration law, public charge. And the public charge requirement applies to every single immigrant case, every one of them. And so many of you sometimes will argue with me, oh, it doesn't apply to DV lottery. Yes, it effing well does. It applies to DV lottery. Whether the consular officer overtly applies that thought process to you or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that piece of the immigration law has been considered in some way. For some people, they can prove that they don't have concerns about public charge in various ways, right? The consular officer can use various factors. One way would be an I-134, which is somebody in the USA who's living and working and legal in the USA, so a citizen or an LPR, a green card holder. So either a citizen or a green card holder fills in a form called the I-134. It's not legally enforceable on that person, but that person is saying they're promising to help the immigrant and the immigrant's family if that person comes to America. It's not, like I say, it's not legally enforceable on the sponsor. Okay, so there really isn't a liability being created here. It's just a sort of a formality, a sort of a process that makes the consular officer feel better. The other thing that they can do is they can look at other circumstances. So how much savings has someone got in the bank account? If somebody can show they have their own personal savings of around about $10,000 to $15,000 per person, then that would, in most circumstances, satisfy the consular officer. So that's your answer. $10,000 to $15,000 is the number I would say. If you're a single person, 10 to 15. If you're a couple, or maybe a family of mum, dad, and 2 kids, then you're going to need a lot more, maybe 30,000. Maybe a little bit more than that, right? Before the consular officer feels that yes, you've got enough of your own finances in order to make this move and not become a public charge. Other factors that can factor in is the type of work that you do. If you've got an extremely high chance of getting work as soon as you get to America because you've got skills or a profession that's extremely in demand, or that you already have a legitimate, a real job offer. I don't mean some bullshit piece of paper that your friend wrote for you from the local restaurant. I don't mean that. I mean a proper job offer, which is extremely unlikely for you to get, FYI. That's why I'm stressing this. But a proper job offer where an American company is literally saying, yes, we're going to patiently wait and hold this job open for you, Mr. Immigrant, for months and months and months, because we can't find anyone as good as you in America. I mean, that whole thing sounds like bullshit to start with. But it's, it's possible in some very few cases. But most of the time when I hear about people who've got a job offer and they want to use that, it's usually bullshit. And I'm sure the consular officers view it the same way. Okay. Hello, will green card winners no longer be able to have interviews at other consulates? Yes, this is a big development this week. Thank you for raising this. I published an explanation of this new policy change in my blog this week. And this is important. Please pay attention to what this is about. About a year and a half ago, I think it was about in March of 24, the government published a new policy that talked about having physical presence in different places, and appeared to be giving the impression that it would be more flexible in agreeing to schedule people at different embassies. So if you're stuck in Turkey and you're in Ankara embassy, and Ankara is going to screw you over, right? The idea was that you could say, well, I can be physically present, or I am physically present in Bangkok, and I'll be there and I have the ability to stay there for as long as I need to stay legally, etc., and for as long as I need to stay to do the interview there. Based on that, Bangkok embassy might say, yes, we'll accept your case, and KCC would move the case, potentially. KCC were not cooperating very well, but there were a lot of people who achieved similar moves, right? That's meant that people went embassy shopping. We call it embassy shopping. People would try and say, oh, my embassy is going to let me down, and therefore I want to find another embassy. How can I do that? Consistently throughout this whole time, I have been reverting to my old advice, which was unlock your DS-260 and change your address to a new country, because that is the most reliable, simplest way for you to get scheduled at a different embassy, right? So you would move to another country and change your address, and thereby you would be scheduled at that new address. Some people, though, have not needed to unlock their DS-260 and change their address. They have just told the KCC or the embassy of this physical presence rule, and they've moved that way. The government have now slammed down hard on that physical presence thing. They've reversed their policy from 18 months ago. And they're now saying that unless you're able to prove that you are resident in this country or your country of nationality, you cannot interview somewhere else, right? And it's so bad that within a couple of days of that policy, Vienna, who has been one of the most flexible and lenient and helpful embassies just recently, immediately contacted a bunch of people who are DV 2026 candidates scheduled in October and cancelled their interviews. And so, this was quite striking, quite shocking, frankly, that they did such a thing. And so there is obviously some teeth to this new policy. This new policy will apply to DV26 candidates. There were some people who tried to bring up 1st of November. They're misreading what the policy said, but this will apply to DV26. It will not apply to DV25, right? So if you're scheduled and you've managed to achieve a move in DV25, this is not for you. This is doesn't concern you. It's about DV26 and people's ability to move embassies. And so it's going to be much harder over the next few months. We don't exactly know yet what all these policy decisions will mean in terms of how individual embassies operate, etc. But the Vienna example tells me that whatever memo was sent to the embassies must have been very strongly worded, because for a lenient and kind embassy like Vienna to suddenly knowingly throw people out, right, where those people had already sort of arranged their interviews in Vienna, that shows that there was a pretty strongly worded memo about this, and that the policy has got some teeth and is strong, right? So this is going to be a problem. So you guys are going to have to pay attention to what I've been saying the whole time, right? If you can avoid this shit, you can avoid them throwing away your visa thing, your chances of getting a green card, if you'll just listen to what I've been saying the whole time, right? Which is the only real safe way to get your embassy assigned to a different embassy, get your case assigned to a different embassy, is by moving to another country and unlocking and changing your DS-260. All right, that's it. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. In the new policy, they mentioned some limited exceptions. Forget about it. That's not going to happen, right? So listen to what I'm saying, please, or accept that your embassy controls your ability to get a green card or not. Now, lastly, I would say that if they had introduced this policy, or if they have introduced this policy, but at the same time, they've said to those embassies, Mr. Embassy in Ankara, for example, or Nairobi, or Addis Ababa, or any of these embassies, if they said, we will make sure that people are not moving around, which means that everybody in your area is your responsibility to interview, right? This new policy means that you can't accept cases from other embassies and so on, and that we will not cooperate in assigning people unless they're resident in your area. But that means, Mr. Embassy in Ankara and all these other shitty embassies that are not working correctly, right? That means that you are going to have to take responsibility to schedule enough DV lottery cases in your embassy. If they have said that, and I've got no evidence at the moment to say that they have said that to the embassies, I'm proposing this as a possibility, right? If they have said, we will tie down the embassy movement stuff that goes on, the embassy shopping, but that means that you have to go back to how you used to operate prior to DV 2019, where everybody had enough capacity. they would just make enough capacity for DV lottery cases, right? Everybody, this whole chaos didn't used to happen, right? If they would go back to those days and they would give people the proper amount of cases, then I would cheer, because people can then just interview wherever the hell they live and get on with life and not have to worry about this. So I don't mind the government playing the hard line if it comes with a hard line to their embassies as well. I don't mind that, right? And neither would you mind that. But I do mind if they're going to be harsh on the one side and they haven't told the embassies, or the embassies don't do anything to meet their local workload, right? That will be a big problem if that's how they operate. So fingers crossed. Okay, greetings from Bangkok. Waguti. Hey, Waguti, how you doing? Case number 54K, scheduled for interview on the 2nd of September, waiting patiently. And you're all set, right? I hope you're going through. I'm sure you have. You've been on here so many times. Please don't forget any documents. Please be proactive in reading the rules, the instructions, and so on. Good luck for the 2nd of September. When is that? That's Tuesday, right? Or, yeah, I think so. Good luck for that. Have fun. Okay, passport, all I talked about. Any update for DV lottery winners for Afghan people? The travel ban is still in place, and that's probably going to be your main concern if you're an Afghan Afghan person, or Yemeni, or Iranian, or any of these other countries that are banned. The travel ban is in place still. Curtis Morrison did achieve a small part of the win for his plaintiffs, only for his plaintiffs. And I think he had about 35 plaintiffs who had argued and successfully that those people who turn up for interview, up to now, the government's just refusing those cases on the spot, right? They either are going to leave people to die on the vine in 221G. They're not going back to those 221G cases and reviewing them or refusing them or doing anything else. They're just leaving them to die on the vine. But if you were going to attend an interview and you're affected by the travel ban, meaning you didn't have another passport to travel on, a Canadian passport or something like that, then they were just refusing cases point blank, just final refusal. That's it. And to a few people, they said, "Oh, we'll look into a national interest exception waiver for you." Bullshit. They don't give those things out. They don't do that, right? And some of you dream that they will, but they won't. That's not going to happen. So they've just been refusing cases. Now, Curtis argued that those visas should be issued even though the person can't travel because of the travel ban. Why does he want that? Well, he wanted that for his clients because if the travel ban is taken down in, let's say, 2 or 3 months and people still have an active visa in their passport, then those people could then enter the USA. That's why he did it. He did a similar thing in a very big lawsuit. There was a number of lawyers that we worked for in DV 2020 and 2021. A similar thing was achieved then, and we actually did get people issued visas. 7,000 visas were issued in September of DV 2020 to people who were at that time travel banned, right? But we fought for that, fought very hard, and we won, thankfully, because in February, I think it was February 14th or so, the travel ban was taken down by the new Biden administration, and therefore those people were still having eligible visas, active visas within their eligibility date, and they entered the USA. 7,000 people. So yeah, big deal, very big deal. So anyway, so right now, the travel ban is in effect. It still affects Afghan people, and others. Okay, guys, wish my family good luck. Good luck to you, Zaina. And they got an appointment on Nairobi on 10th of September. That's awesome. Good luck. Make it count. I'm from Morocco, case number 70K, DV26. Good for you. If I get a 6-month visa and cannot go to the US within 6 months, can I extend it for another 6 months until May 2026 so that I can receive a 2NL again? Probably not, no. So you can receive a 2NL again. What the fuck are you talking about, receiving a 2NL again? You're confused with what you're asking, but basically, the visas can be replaced. Like if you went for an interview in January and you were approved last January, during the year, the fiscal year, so up until September, that visa could theoretically be replaced, renewed by another visa. That is technically possible. But after the end of the fiscal year, that's not so easy to achieve, right? And so you mustn't think about that. You have to use your visa to enter the USA within the 6 months. Not doing that, frankly, is a lesson in stupidity. Your country could be travel banned tomorrow. Trump. Who the hell knows what Trump is going to do next, right? The man's a buffoon, and if he turns around and shuts down travel because he says people from France are, we don't like their cuisine, and so we're shutting down entry from France. There's nothing to stop him doing that right now because it takes so long to sue him and everything else, right? So I don't know where you're from, Fun 60s, but get your ass into America. Right? What are you doing? Like, what is so important that is going on in your home country that you can't get off your ass and take advantage of this once in a lifetime opportunity by entering America? You don't have to move there immediately. You can enter America and you can leave. You can stay for 5 minutes and leave again if you want. If you don't have a lot of finances, you can enter, you can start work almost immediately. You can quickly save up some money and leave again if you want, right? There's no reason to not go to America when you have a visa printed in your passport. What, are you busy at work or something? Who gives a damn what you're doing at work? Like, get your ass into America, right? Oh dear. Vafi, interview on 2nd September. Good luck. Another one. Good luck, Vafi. I'm sorry. Transferred my case from Ankara to Wien. Really? But my interview hasn't. Where's Wien? That's Vienna, is it? But my interview hasn't been scheduled yet. What do you expect? You will not. So you haven't transferred your case. You're using the wrong term. But you're using a term that applies for transfers between embassies. By the way, the new policy has affected that too. They say they're going to involve KCC on those transfers between embassies. That sounds bizarre to me, but that's what they say they're going to do. In your case, you haven't been scheduled, so you haven't transferred your case. You have asked to reassign your case from Ankara to Wien, whatever, wherever that is. But that will probably not be respected. So if they've just cancelled a bunch of appointments for people who transferred from Ankara to Vienna, and you're probably aware of that because the Turkish applicants have got a very good online forum of their own, and they talk quite commonly. Since they've cancelled those, I'm expecting them to cancel other sorts of reassignments, unless you've shown adequate proof that you reassigned because of an address change, right? So again, please listen to what I say. An address change is the safest way. If you've changed the address, then you're good. You're fine. If you've been assigned at a different embassy because you've actually moved to another country, you're fine, right? And if you need to show proof that you're now resident in that other country, no problem, right? Because now you're resident there. But if you didn't do that and you relied on some of the techniques to just get a reassignment of your case without changing your address, then your case is at risk. You'll probably be at risk there. Fatima, hi Brit Simon. So this is how it ended. AF 25,000 from Sierra Leone. Yeah, disappointed and frustrated that this opportunity went down the drain. I totally understand your sentiment there, Fatima. It's very sad. This is a brutal process, I have to say. Much as it's a wonderful process, it's a golden opportunity for many. It is every year. It's got sad, very brutal aspects to it. And this year, obviously, with the travel ban or with some embassies who just stopped behaving, similar to other years, there are some very sad stories. So I'm sorry for that. It makes me sad, but it is what it is. Hello, Simon. When I fill out my DS260, I was living in Morocco, my chargeability country. Now I moved to Qatar, working and residing there. Do I have the right to change my embassy after the new rules? Yes, you do, because you live in Qatar. So you hopefully have changed your DS260 address. I hope you've done that. And if you haven't, you need to do that. You need to email KCC and unlock so that you can change your address to Qatar. Now, with the new policy, they may say to you to provide evidence that you reside in Qatar. They may. I don't know, right? This is part of the new policy that they may implement. But nevertheless, the first step in that is to unlock your DS260 and change your address. Okay, so please do that. Please don't even think about, does this delay my case? Like, you have to understand that, number one, unlocking DS260s doesn't delay cases in general. It doesn't. It just doesn't. I don't know why we still talk about it occasionally, but it doesn't delay. Number two, it is, even if it did delay cases, it would be much better to be delayed but be interviewed than to be never interviewed. Can you guys see that? So I hope you can. What do I tell about DV25 before September 30th? I think I already covered it. Any updates of the travel ban lawsuit to issue the visa? Only that one update where there was some success. Curtis published, if anyone's interested, he published a transcript, a 90-page transcript. It's shuddering to read that. That judge, quite interesting. The judge, Sparkle something or other, gave both the government lawyer and Curtis a tough time, I have to say, just reading the transcript. Curtis, you're very brave publishing these transcripts, I have to say. The judge was just brutal with you. Now, funnily enough, I watched the confirmation hearing for that same judge, and she went through a brutal time with Josh Hawley and others as well. So what goes around comes around, I guess. It was your time to get an ass kicking from her. But anyway, so no other updates that I have on that. I know that Curtis is working that case very, very diligently and actively, and they've got various dates ahead of them where the government have to provide information, and the arguments would continue. What will happen on that, I don't know. I don't see that lawsuit taking down the travel ban. I know that's one of the things that it tries to achieve, but I personally don't think that will happen from that lawsuit. Yeah. So anyway, can somebody please answer? I already did answer the updates for Afghans, right? Any updates? Sorry, just repeating the same thing. Lucky boy, how you doing? Embassy requested to reschedule, but they run out of numbers. We cannot reschedule. What's your advice? They haven't run out of numbers. The visa numbers have not run out, apart from Egypt, right? So I don't know what you're saying. Lucky boy, I don't know what country you're from. But running out of visa numbers is not generally the problem here, right? Okay. Travel ban affected Afghans. I've already talked about Afghans. Right. They are just trying to delay DV lottery process in any way. I don't know why they let people dreaming about this chance after this, they just say sorry and they waste a lot of visas. Yep. That's, two sides of the same coin, right? Yes, they're wasting a lot of visas, but 45,000 people or so will get green cards in the easiest way possible that you can get a green card. I mean, it's not insignificant. It's just not as good as it should be, right? It's been unnecessarily stressful. It's been unnecessarily wasteful. It's the number cutoff that they implement was ridiculous. The number cutoff didn't give them any chance to reach the number of visas that they should have issued, they've handled it wrong. But it isn't the first time they've handled it wrong. They've handled it wrong before, and they'll do it again, I'm afraid. They just don't seem to understand how to run it. People have asked me to go take a job at KCC to run this thing. No. I don't want to live in Kentucky, and I don't want to be paid peanuts. And no, I'm not going to do that. Thank you. Hello, Simon. In October, it's time of interview for low case, or it's time to receive 2NL. Every month, there is a cadence here. The visa bulletin is published between the 8th and the 15th. Immediately after the visa bulletin is published, sometime in that time period, between the 8th and the 15th, 2NLs start coming out. And those 2NLs affect cases for 2 months after that. So in September, we're about to be in September. The visa bulletin that is published in September will be for November interviews, right? So the visa bulletin will come out in mid-September, sometime between the 8th and the 15th, and then 2NLs will come out, and they will be for November interviews, right? The October interviews have been scheduled already based on last month's visa bulletin, right? So there's this natural cadence happens every single month. No need to ask about it every single month because it's the same answer every single month, right? That's how it works. Farah, hi Simon, I'm Djiboutian winner, DV26 case number 77K, and I filled the embassy that I will be interviewed if I get my 2NL in Djibouti is fine. Is there a backlog in Djibouti embassy? Look, you're a DV26 winner with a 77K case number. That means that if you get current, it won't be for many months from now. It'll be middle of next year, end of next year. It'll be about a year from now, right? I don't know whether there will be a backlog in a year from now at your embassy. Nobody knows that. We don't know how your embassy is going to perform. So what you've got to do is you've got to put on your big boy pants and you've got to be patient, right? And then in January, you have to start paying attention, because in January, we're going to start getting the data from all the embassies. And you'll then be able to observe what the Djibouti embassy does, how many cases they take per month, and so on. And so you will then be able to say, okay, am I going to be able to stay in Djibouti, or am I going to be better off by moving to another country, right? But again, try and pay attention to all these stuff going on. The policy change that's just come along this week, you may not think that's important to you. It is important to you, right? Your case number and the fact that they haven't published the number of selectees, that's important to you, because we don't know how many selectees there are in DV26. We don't know how high your case number is, but it sounds pretty high, right? So you need to start thinking a little bit more about bigger picture stuff and listening to more of what I discuss, rather than just focusing on what you think is important, right? These other things, it's like you're walking down the street and you've got your eye on that pretty girl down the street, right? What you're not noticing is that there's trucks coming at you from left and right, and they're going to hit you and kill you before you get to the pretty girl, unless you pay attention to what you're being told, right? So start paying attention to what you're being told, right? So asking me about is there a backlog in Djibouti embassy at this time of year, when it's a year from now, is frankly, that's like looking at the pretty girl. You're not paying attention. You're not thinking about all the other stuff that's going on, right? And you need to think about everything that's going on. Is your case going to be too high? How many selectees are there? When will we get the data to see the performance of the embassies in DV26, rather than thinking about what they did in DV25 and so on, right? This policy change, travel bans, there's a lot of stuff you've got to think about. They're all trucks waiting to kill you, right? Please do pay attention. Try and get yourself out the sort of Any updates on the photo service? Yes. How much will it cost? What will be the method of payment? Right. It's going to be $6 for a photo. I think we found various. Oh, so the DV lottery tool is what I'm going to be releasing in about a week to 2 weeks time. It's a little bit later than I wanted. I wanted it right at the beginning of September, but it's complicated to build. We've got engineers working on that right now. It's a photo tool that will allow you to take a photo with your cell phone, and it will produce for you a photo suitable for the DV lottery. It is specifically geared to the DV lottery. It applies all of the checks that are applied by the government to weed out the photos, and they disqualify a lot of people for photos, a lot of people, right? Many thousands. Millions of cases, in effect, are disqualified because of bad photos. And so this photo tool is specifically geared to DV lottery, and it's the only photo tool that is specifically geared to DV lottery, that applies through artificial intelligence, applies all these checks that are specifically taken from the DV lottery rules, right? So I'm very excited about it because I believe it will help some of you tremendously, because rather than just getting disqualified straight away, you're going to have a chance to get a green card. So I'm excited about this. It'll cost about $6 a photo, which is less than we've studied other photo tools. None of those do the DV rules that we do. So our service is going to be better than theirs, much better. But their costs are sort of typically $9, $10, and so on. So we're pricing it lower than those because, frankly, I don't need to make a fortune out of this. I'm just trying to cover the costs, right? So I'm pricing it lower, about $6 a photo. There'll be a discount for families that have multiple photos. The tool will be released in a week or two in time for the new lottery season, right? Which I believe will be held in October unless the government try and mess with that. Okay, so that's what it is. Thanks for asking about that, Morris. It'll be soon. Fingers crossed. What happens if someone forgot their social media handles? You mean forgot to enter them in the DS260? Unless your case is like current, or you're being scheduled right now, or unless you've got a very, very low case number, I would say you're better off to unlock your DS260 and correct social media. Anything, actually, any corrections. If you've got a high case number, why not just unlock your DS260 and correct those problems, right? If you haven't listed all of your education, if you haven't listed all of your work experience or your address history and so on, you do want to be transparent. You do want to answer the DS260 questions correctly. You do not want to give the impression you're trying to hide something by hiding some information that they ask for. They ask for all the education history of secondary and above. That's from age 12 and up. Did you do that? They ask for 10 years of address history. Have you given them that? They ask for all your social media history, not just the social media you feel like giving them, but all of your social media history. So if you don't give them some things that they ask for, it looks like you're trying to hide it. Why would you do that to yourself, right? I don't get why people do this. So anyway, the best answer is to unlock and correct that. And I get why people with very, very low case numbers may not do that, but generally speaking, you're better off to unlock and correct it. Okay. Grace, I'm going to take a couple more questions, and I'm going to have to call it a day. Okay. Grace from Rwanda, East Africa, applied as single, marital status, DV26. Does marriage affect interview? I have a high case number, 82K. Grace, you applied as single. Were you actually single, or did you lie? Okay, and you probably don't like the word lie, but if you were actually married and you said you were single, then that is a lie, right? If that's the case, if you lied in your application, then you will be disqualified later, right? If, on the other hand, you entered as single because you were legitimately single at that time, and then you got married later, because you're only asking this question because you're obviously either married or about to get married or something. But if you got married later, that's fine, right? But you have to show the paperwork for your marriage and so on. So yeah, you've got to apply with the correct legal marital status, okay? You have to apply in the DV lottery process. Then when your marital status changes, you have to update your DS260 because marital status is a very significant change, right? You do not want to turn up for the interview and say, oh, by the way, I got married 6 months ago, but I didn't want to unlock my DS260. You know, you don't want to do that, right? You should have by that time unlocked your DS260, added your spouse, create a DS260 for the spouse, and so on. Go together. That's what you should do. Okay, so please do follow the advice. I cover this on my blog in detail about when you should add a spouse and so on. My blog is britsimonsays.com, right? Go to britsimonsays.com and in fact, just Google the words Brit Simon and marriage, right? And that will bring you to a useful page for you. Transferring the cases is cancelled. Is it true? What do you think about transferred but not scheduled interviews? I already answered your question, Sarah. I think they're going to be cancelling some. You keep using the word transfer. That's the wrong word, but reassignment. So you've been reassigned to a different embassy because you're currently, you live in Ankara, but you've asked to be assigned somewhere else. You have not transferred your case. You've asked to be reassigned. That's all. And depending on how you ask to be reassigned, etc., that reassignment will probably be ignored now. They'll probably reassign you back to Ankara based on your place of residence, right? How do they find out your place of residence? They read your effing DS260. This is the point I keep making. The current address in the DS260 will now, more than ever, but the same as ever, to be honest, control where you get scheduled, right? So you've given your current address in Ankara, you'll be scheduled in Ankara, or maybe not scheduled in Ankara if Ankara continue to misbehave. Okay, let me scan through. What means the ready status? Ready is a case that has been scheduled for interview, right? Now, if you were scheduled for interview in January, but you didn't turn up, then your case still says the word ready next to it, right? And that means you were a no-show in January, right? And that's why 15,000 people show as ready status when actually only 8,000 are scheduled for interviews in September. And all the other interviews, their dates have passed now, right? It's the end of the month now. So there's no other August interviews happening, okay? Okay, next question. This is someone who's come from the future. Welcome, future time traveler. How are you, sir? I have an 80K case number for DV Lottery 2029. Congratulations on your DV29 win. I didn't even, and you're asking, is it possible to be scheduled for interview? I didn't even think it was possible to be scheduled for, to be selected for DV29 yet. So welcome, time traveling El Haji person. I think you've probably made a mistake in the 2029, right? So you got an 80K number. What am I going to guess this as being DV26? While I'm in a guessing mood, apparently I've got to guess your region as well, or I've got to go and kill an angel. A little bit of accurate detail helps. But let me just make some assumptions. Let's say you're a 2026 applicant and you're an 80K, and because you're 80K, that probably means you're Africa. In that case, you've got about a year to wait before you know anything, before you get scheduled, if at all. And we don't know whether your case number is super high or just a bit high, but it's certainly quite high, right? I mean, we know that. We know that DV26 case numbers go up to about 110,000 or so in Africa. Okay, so 80K must be pretty high. Will you get a chance? I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. Insider Official. Hello, Simon. When to expect first 2NLs for DV26 winner? There's already 2NLs been sent for DV26. Lots of people have already been scheduled in DV26, right? So when to expect them? Well, a few weeks ago. What do you think? DV26 will go more than EU 19,000? I don't know. See, what you have to understand is that the numbers are not necessarily informative at this point, right? There are not 18,999 active cases in front of case number 19,000 in EU, right? There's lots of holes in between those case numbers. There's gaps, right? Not every single case is there. Those gaps are created because people submit bad photos and things. This is why I'm introducing the photo tool. They're also about 10% of all the entries are taken out because they're fraudulent. They're duplicate entries, right? So more than 50% actually so I just told you that in DV25, well, in DV25, 57 point something percent of all the case numbers that are in the range are holes, right? That is, those cases have been disqualified for some reason before the announcement of the results. The government have published information suggesting they disqualified about 10%, about 2.5 million of the DV25 entries. Okay, so that means that the difference between the 10% and the 57% is mainly photos. Photos are incredibly, dear me, photos are incredibly important and being done incredibly badly, which is why my photo app is going to exist, right? And so, some of you just apparently can't take a photo very well. And so I'm trying to solve some of that problem, or at least help you in solving some of that problem. And even if you can take a photo, you might think that a regular passport photo will fit the bill. But there are requirements that the DV lottery has that are not that usual. And so my new app is going to check those other requirements as well to make sure you won't be disqualified, right? So, for example, simple little thing. You take a photo at a passport photo booth and you smile. Disqualified, right? Because you shouldn't be smiling in the DV lottery photo, right? So my app will go and check that. Is the subject smiling? And if it is, it's not going to let you produce that photo. It's going to tell you your photo is bad. And I'm going to do that, by the way, in the app and not even charge you the money for it. I'm going to let you see the photo and not charge you until you and we are happy that your photo is good. Like, something you don't understand how my brain works. I wanted this to be helpful to people, and I didn't want them to have to spend money, if they didn't need to spend money, etc. And I'm just trying to help. So I hope people will use my photo tool when it comes out, because I've invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of my heart, frankly, into making sure that it's the best result for people. And it's important to me. I don't know why I care. I've got my green card. I've got my citizenship. Why do I do this? I don't know. Anyway, I do. So anyway, going back to this question, will it go to more than 19,000? So there's all those gaps in between, right? And so that means that you can't know what really your 19,000 case number means. And it's particularly bad right now because we don't know the selectee numbers. So for me to give you an answer about your case number at 19,000 is ridiculous. I don't know, right? I don't know whether it's going to go higher than that or not. Just as a rough guess, it sounds like an okay number, but I don't know how many selectees are chosen. Neither do you, nor does anyone. And so there are websites and stuff that will tell you, they'll tell you very clearly, oh, you'll be fine. Those websites and those people saying that, they're idiots because they don't know any information. They're pretending to know, right? So I'm not going to do the same thing. Okay, Joaquin Conde says, I won the DV26, but my case number is AF82.9. Is it possible to fill in the DS260 now? Yes, absolutely. You can fill in the DS260. The only thing I would say is that if you are someone that thinks that if you didn't get the DV lottery, and you might not because your case number might be too high, let's say, or your embassy's not working or whatever, there's no guarantees in this process that you're going to get the green card. So in a situation where you don't get the green card, the DS260 that you fill in will be a factor against you on future non-immigrant visas. So if you have to go for a B1, B2 or something like that, the fact that you filled in a DS260 will make that application a little bit harder. Not impossible, just a little bit harder, okay? So is that going to be a problem for you? Then you might want to wait until we've got more information after the next month, after January 1 and so on. when we can really say how high your case number is, and we can talk about which embassy you're at and how they're working and that sort of thing. But otherwise, if you want a chance of getting your case, you have to fill in your DS-260 early enough. And by the way, people in DV25 that filled in their DS-260, even in May and June, found that there wasn't enough time to have their DS-260s processed this year. So don't leave it late. Don't leave it too late, okay? Okay, 1 or 2 more questions. We'll call it a day. Patrick's passionate. Nairobi effed me up at 27K. I mean, that's messed up, isn't it? Thanks for keeping us updated. I wish all those whose interviews are coming up in September well. DV26 better be here all the time to avoid our fate. Yeah. Information is power. And, as time goes on, things like this new policy that's going to affect people's ability to change where they interview and stuff, it'll be important to know how these policies operate, right? And so you have to keep coming back. I'm afraid you have to keep coming back and listen to my live channels, look at my blog, ask me questions through Telegram or whatever you need to do, but make sure you understand what's really going on, right? And listen to the right people. It's important. Don't listen to your mate down the pub or something who thinks he knows everything about DV lottery. Not many people do, not really. So, be careful. Okay, can you tell me whether I'm able to enter the US on an ESTA while waiting for interview? My DS-260 is processed, but I don't have a 2NL yet. DS-260. So you've got OC200 number, really low number. You're going to get scheduled next month, Matthew. So do you really need to go on an ESTA? But simple answer is yes, you can enter on an ESTA while you're waiting for interview. Even if you've been scheduled for interview, you can enter on an ESTA. If you've already got the ESTA, you can enter on that ESTA. ESTA does not allow you to adjust status. So there's not very much risk for them to let you enter the USA because you have to leave. And if you don't leave, you get into all sorts of trouble, right? So it's very clear that you would be idiotic to enter on an ESTA and then try and mess around when you've got a green card interview coming up, right? So you're really no risk for the US government of overstaying or anything like that. You can therefore use your ESTA, yes. But don't forget, you're going to be getting your green card fairly soon. When you get your green card, you might then want to take a trip to America to activate your green card status, even if you then leave and go back. But by activating your green card status, your green card will then be being produced in the background while you've left the country. Your social security number will be prepared, etc. Maybe you can open a bank account while you're in America. Maybe you can look around for apartments, and it'll be easier for you to then move to America later on, right? So, maybe you want to wait until you've got your green card in your hand or your visa in your hand and enter then. Okay, right. Let me see. I'm just going to scan. Okay, good question here. I'm from Angola, and this is going to be my 3rd time participating in the DV program. Do you have any advice for me? Anything to correct for the next draw? Very important that you take a photo properly, right? Photo is going to be like, I'm banging on about it because it's on my mind, obviously, because of this app that I'm creating. But I think probably, maybe I don't know all of the cases, but let's say 30 to 40%. So 1/3 of the people, let's say, right, roughly speaking, but probably nearer to 40%, frankly. But at least 1/3 of the people who enter the lottery think they're going to be selected, but they took their photo in a way that means they won't get even the chance to be selected. They're going to be kicked out. What's worse is that the way the draw works is, and the UK lawsuit just proved this to us. The way the draw works is that as you enter, all the case numbers are jumbled up. At the end of the entry period, all the case numbers are sort of randomized and then assigned a case number. So you might get case number, if you're from Africa, let's say Africa #1. You might be #1 in Africa. You might be, they might have case numbers going out to 100,000, but you're case #1, right? Because numerically you got sorted in that way. And then they take a look at your photo and you're smiling in the bloody photo, or you've broken some other rule. Bing, your number becomes a whole, and you never find out that you are actually Africa #1. Do you get how stupid that is, right? Do you understand how ridiculous that is to be in a position where numerically you were Africa #1 or EU #1 or EU 10,000 or something, a nice low case number, but because you didn't have the right photo, because you didn't use the right photo tool or whatever, or you thought you understood the requirements of the photo thing, you get kicked out. 1/3 of all the entries are getting kicked out for exactly that reason, right? Please, the chaos has got to stop. So, I've put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into in producing this app that will stop that sort of chaos. So that's the biggest thing. So that's going to give you a massive increase in your chance just by making sure your photo is correct. So run it through my photo app when it comes out. Take a photo from there, right? Make sure you tell the truth. The other really annoying thing is when people don't tell the truth. Oh, one of my kids was off at school. I couldn't get a photo, so I didn't put them on the entry. You're going to be disqualified at the interview. You'll be selected. You'll go through all this waiting. You'll be interviewed, and then you're going to be disqualified at the interview because you didn't include an eligible relative, right? Your chargeability country. Make sure you understand what country of birth means. Where were you born? That's where you should be entering, apart from a couple of exceptions. So, be careful about the basic rules. Just follow the rules, take a good photo, and that's the best way to improve your chances. That's it. That's what I can tell you. Okay. Last question here on a Frankfurt thing. Hi, Simon. I have a 24.6 DV25 number, but still not invited to interview from Frankfurt. The bulletins for September are till 23K. So this means that chance for an interview is not possible. Yeah. Let me answer that question in a couple of ways. If you're EU 24.6, then you're above the 23,000 cutoff. And so, yes, 100% certain you were not going to get an interview for September. The 23,000 cutoff did not change. It was published in July. That was it. That was the end of your chance, right? There's no possible way that you could be scheduled with a case number above the cutoff. But also, some people are asking me about not just Europe. Actually, let me just check that. But not just Frankfurt, but also other embassies. Whether there's a chance that they'll take another batch of interviews, right? Now, Frankfurt took 50 on August 8th. And so some people have been asking, okay, will there be any more after that point for Frankfurt or for other embassies, let's say? Nairobi is one of the ones that people are hoping that they'll take extra cases. The reality is that I can't say with 100% certainty that there are going to be no more batches of interviews for DV25. But I can't say that with 100% certainty because I've seen cases where some interviews have been arranged very late, even in September, for September interviews, right? I've seen that before, but those are very, very rare, exceptional situations. That's not the norm. That's not really what I expect to happen. It should not be what you expect to happen. So if you're a DV25 case and you haven't been scheduled yet, your chance is probably gone, right? That's probably the reality, right? So you have to start mentally coming to terms with that. If you're still thinking, oh, I'm sure they're going to take some more, my buddy down the pub, down the market or whatever, says they're going to take some more. He knows the janitor at the Nairobi embassy, so he's got inside information. He knows, right? If you're thinking those ways, it's probably not going to be true, right? And so you need to sort of mentally sort of start to accept that. And I'm sorry that it's worked out that way, but that's what it is, right? So most of the embassies are already scheduling for DV26. They're done with DV25, and it's just the way it is. It's the September begins in 2 days' time. It's really too late now for any realistic chance of any significant number of 2NLs to be coming out for DV25. Okay. All right, everybody, we'll call that a day. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. If you still have a question for me, you can go and ask, excuse me. You can go and ask your questions at britsimonsays.com, and I will answer all the questions there. I am going away for the weekend, so my internet access will be limited, maybe non-existent. So I might be delayed in answering this weekend, but other than that, I normally answer all questions within a few hours. So by all means, ask your questions there. britsimonsays.com. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good day. Bye-bye.